If you just learn the 2-letter words, you're going to beat everybody you meet because nobody plays with, nobody knows all of them, and you can make parallel plays. You can create plays, parallel other plays, and make a whole bunch of 2-letter words, and then you get like 50 extra points.
So if you could just drop a tile and land yourself 50 points, that's...
Yeah, exactly. That happens in our games as well. Sometimes we're playing and then somebody drops QI for 62 points. You're like, oh, great. now I'm going to lose.
All right, Aaron. So today we're talking with César and Jesse of Woogles, and I didn't close the loop on the catch-up. So if you listen all the way through, you won't get a payoff on the condiments. One of them loves ketchup, one of them doesn't.
We didn't close that loop, but we covered a lot of other great ground. I thought it was really interesting, their approach to creating a 501c3 for the exploration of this game. And frankly, like no offense to a lot of nonprofits, but a lot of nonprofits, just because it is volunteer effort, like websites maybe don't look super professional, don't have the highest quality things. Like you go to their website, this looks like a company, like this looks like a legit enterprise. And I think that a lot of that just comes back to César and Jesse's background and really taking a professional approach to things and frankly their love of Scrabble. So it was cool to talk with them here and kind of see how everything came to be.
Yeah, super exchange around the difference between like, hey, I've done a legit startup and we're doing what is a nonprofit along the way. And I didn't anticipate it getting so far down the AI path so early in the conversation, but we touched on all kinds of stuff and we hope you enjoy the episode.
Killer. All right.
Welcome to the Hey Good Game podcast, where we chat with developers, designers, and executives of your favorite brainy games that you secretly play in the nooks and crannies of your day. I see you on the train playing our games. Today, we're thrilled to speak with César del Solar and Jesse Day, who helped bring Woogles to the world. Both César and Jesse have shared interest in Scrabble. However, they do not share their interest in condiments. One of them is a coder, the other is a data cruncher, and together, along with the community, they've built Woogles, a nonprofit for gaming with a particular love of words. Welcome, guys. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
For sure. I understand we're spread across the country. Aaron and I are in Minneapolis. Where do we find you guys?
I'm normally in Austin, Texas, although I'm currently in Colorado with my family.
I'm in New Jersey myself.
Fantastic. Both great parts of the country.
My wife is from Edina, so near Minneapolis.
Did you say Medina or
no, Edina? Edina.
Yeah, I know a little bit about that. I might be in Edina right now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's wonderful. There's more to talk about there. Like, where did you guys meet? And no, let's not do that. I understand that Woogles was inspired by another .org, and this was Lichess. Let's not ask me to pronounce anything more. But tell us about that aha moment.
I can tell you, like I remember this very clearly. I think I was on something like Reddit or Hacker News back in like 2013, 2014. And somebody was talking about different sites for playing chess. And then I clicked on the thread and somebody mentions how Lichess is this beautiful site and has everything. Like it was made by like one single developer and it does like everything that you want at a chess site. Like you have analysis and tournaments and just a nice way to play. And it's all open source. So I clicked through it and I was just like shocked, like just by looking through it. Like I couldn't believe like that one person built this. And I immediately fired an email to him, telling him like, this is one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. And I'm so inspired to do something similar for like a game like Scrabble. But there's a copyright issue. So, and I don't know if I would get like buy-in from the founders and whatever from the trademark owners. And he responded just like a nice like oh, thank you for emailing me. Hope it works out. And then that was just in my head for a few years. And then once the pandemic hit, like it was Jesse, myself, and a third guy named Conrad, who served as a designer, who got together and decided to make something you know, kind of like in my head, like I took a lot of inspiration from Lichess, but there was also like a lot of our own secret sauce there as well.
Yeah. Another pandemic threw the world a number of curveballs, but it's a recurring theme that something was made during that time, and we can chalk this up to that. That's wonderful. And Jesse, how did you? Was it like a Zoom cast, and he threw an idea over the wall, or how did you come across this wild notion from your friend, the developer?
Well, before the pandemic, I was mostly preoccupied with kind of the selfish pursuit of being as good of a Scrabble player as I could be. And I made it to the World Championship finals twice. The first time I was 2 games away from winning. The second time I came 1 game away from winning. And then the pandemic happened. And I realized as I wanted to compete that the only websites that were out there to play my game of choice on were the same ones from almost 15 years earlier, where I'd started in the mid 2000s as a teenager. The UI hadn't changed. There were vulnerabilities. It was not suitable for high level competition. So I think we probably mutually complained about this together until we actually got enough. We were just probably tossing ideas around, and it started to get an amount of seriousness because our friends got interested. And that's when we decided to actually raise money and try to turn this into a reality.
Super. We both, Aaron and I, have been there where you just kick stuff around for fun, and then it gets serious, right, Aaron?
Yeah, seems a little familiar.
I think the phrase is, none of us need another K1, but it's fantastic.
One interesting aside is that Jesse and I, like for a couple of years before, were actually in a project to develop an AI to play the game of Scrabble as well as possible, right? And we'd had like planning sessions over at his apartment where we'd like sketch out things, and sometimes even we actually worked at the same job for a couple of years. Sometimes we'd stay after work and like sketch out algorithms and stuff. And it was around when the pandemic started that we said, okay, like we have something that's pretty good. We want to show the world. The AI is about as good as the current existing one on the market. And then we decided, well, do we actually want to do an AI, or do we want to make a way for everybody to play? So we kind of decided to create Woogles and put the AI on hold for a bit. But lately, I've been working a bit more on the AI, and Jesse like came up with some really good values for different parameters that are superior to those of Quackle, which is the existing AI for Scrabble right now. So I think we now have the best AI in the world, but we want to do some more experiments and play it against existing AIs. And there's people on YouTube making like series, like best of 100 series against it and getting their butts kicked. So it's it's kind of nice.
Oh, that's fun. Best of 100 against the current model. Yeah.
Yeah, the best AI that we have right now, the current model. Exactly. Yeah. But we still haven't applied, like we'd like to apply machine learning and things like that to it. And Jesse's the expert at that. But even what we have right now without that is like, I think it's formidable enough.
I'm super curious about AI on this. I've got a coding background. I'm not deep in AI, but as I think about AI in the gaming space, you've got kind of levels of what's been developed over time with different games. And if I've got the history right, at first it was kind of, okay, we're going to build AI for chess, and that was seen as this audacious thing for a long time. Like, can we even build an AI that's gonna beat the world's best chess players? But then, like, building it for Go seemed like the unachievable thing, and now there's AI for that. What's your guys' assessment of for Scrabble, like level of difficulty, if you compare building AI for that to building AI for chess or Go or some of these other popular games?
It's extreme. There's no other way to put it, just because of the number of permutations. When I draw tiles out of a tile bag, there are 100 tiles, always the same tiles every game. But there's 100 factorial different ways or orders that I can draw tiles out of the tile bag. So to solve it deterministically is a massive challenge beyond any other game. but it is not frequently approached that way. A lot of people think Scrabble is solved simply because learning the words is such a challenge that very few humans do so at the level of a computer.
Yeah,
But there's
computer can just find all the plays immediately.
Right, but there's this whole real deep strategic aspect to it that is really only the surface is being scratched. Our best player, Nigel Richards, who's this otherworldly, kind of famous, even on random Reddit threads, savant who can read dictionaries and then play in that lexicon at a world-class level. He does stuff that none of us understand.
Yeah, and we've tried to replicate it. I have a video where I replicated something that he did, like based on like the move that his opponent made. We tried to apply inferences. We would say, okay, based on the move that Nigel's opponent made, can our bot figure out what the best move that Nigel should make in return? Because Nigel at the time made something that we thought was a ridiculous move. And it turns out that we were able to replicate that move, but we could not replicate other moves in the same vein. So it's kind of interesting to see what he's doing differently from all of us. But it's something that hopefully, like with maybe the advent of like machine learning, we can try to replicate it more. But at the moment, like as Jesse said, like there's so many possibilities that we do like a probabilistic approach where for any given position, you just do like something called like Monte Carlo sampling, like where you play out different like random choices for your rack and for their rack and for your rack again, and then you play like the best move from those, like and you use a very simple heuristic to find the best move because you have to do so many of this that it has to be fast. So then that heuristic is very underdeveloped. It's the same heuristic that came up in the 80s in the very first AI for this, like called Maven. But we don't have anything better. Now it's 30 years later or 40 years later, but we don't really have anything better. And we have an active Discord channel where people are talking about ideas and trying different things or talking about trying different things. I'm excited to see what comes of that. Like, even if we just come up with a better evaluation heuristic, we could probably improve that Monte Carlo player significantly. But even then, it's still really good. Like even with that simple heuristic, it'll beat almost any human player except we think probably Nigel. We'll have to match it against Nigel if he ever agrees. That would be awesome.
That's super interesting because I think just with my development background, where my head went first is, well, the computer is going to beat me every time. It's like my vocabulary is terrible, so like it's going to know the full dictionary. But I think, Jesse, what you said about that whole strategic side and some of those examples from Nigel, that's super interesting. So great work on building that. That's amazing. One of the things that I'm curious about, like it seems like you guys are both, in the startup scene and probably capitalists by nature in that regard. But I don't see many games that like are intentionally backed by a 501c3. Like there are, certainly a lot of open source games out there, but when did you get that idea specifically to like, we should really have a sort of a foundation behind this?
Well, it was out of survival because unlike many other popular games worldwide, the game of Scrabble is copyrighted all over the world. Actually, the copyright holder in the US is Hasbro, but in the rest of the world, Mattel outbid Hasbro for the rights sometime a decade or two back. And that copyright seems like it's going to be there for a long time. There is an expiration on copyrights, but you can also reassert it potentially. So we had to reckon with that, and we've dedicated a large part of our lives to Scrabble already, but we had to come up with something that was not going to be a threat to the copyright holders and to state our intentions, which were not to basically usurp their copyright and try to profit off of it, but rather just to get more people playing Scrabble and to lift the competitive level of the game. We figured that going the nonprofit route was the most promising thing we could do. And we have met with Mattel at least, and we have contacts at Hasbro since then. And I think we had the idea that as a big corporation, they'd be extraordinarily defensive of their copyright, because that's how they get to maintain the copyright, is by regularly challenging it. But they've actually been very receptive to us, because I think we have a great mission. We have kind of a scholastic focus. A lot of our players are school children from countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, India, Sri Lanka, and I think they like what we're doing. We've sort of proven that we're in this for the long haul, and that we have these five missions that are covered under the 501c3 category.
That's fascinating. We're just making games and having fun and kind of goofing off. But when I came across you all, I started thinking back to when I had to learn words, and Friday was always spelling test day, and Thursday night I would spend crying because I've never been able to spell. And when the first computers came out, I was so excited because it give you a little squiggly line under it, like really big vocabulary, but spelling for whatever reason has never organized well. As we've been playing games and building out games, and teachers reaching out to us talking about math, largely our math games, it's wonderful to hear you on the language side connecting a similar kind of like, hey, we're just goofing off. Wait, there's an education part. And I would love to have not been tearful, fourth grader right on Thursday nights. I started playing the license plate game, and I was like, oh, this is fun. Oh, I get this. So I had like a fear and death of words. Where did your love of words start?
Yeah, it's hard to know. Like you have the spelling, like being terrified of spelling, and myself. Like I actually moved to this country when I was 9. I was born in Venezuela. Speaking about capitalist countries, right? So I was born in Venezuela. I moved to this country when I was 9, and back in 1993, and I had to learn English. And my brother had helped me like for a few months before, because he's a little bit older than me. He's about 10 years older than me, and he actually already knew some English, and having like taken it in school, so he was teaching me English before. But I was still here, and I was very very much a neophyte at the language, and my school started having spelling bees. So for some reason, I was just good at spelling bees, even though I didn't know English, and I actually made it to the school finals. But I remember I lost on the word facial, like pertaining to the face. I just could not figure out what he was saying, because I've never seen that word in print. And then I spelled it fashion or something. But I think he also mispronounced it. That's what somebody told me, that he mispronounced the word. I can't remember. And then, but I always liked, for some reason, like words just kind of stuck in my head. And it wasn't until I was like 16 or so that I found Yahoo Literati online. And it was like a light bulb like turned on for me. Like I used to play Yahoo games like Hearts and Graffiti and all those games back in the early 2000s. And Literati showed up, and I just got hooked on it. Like I can't even explain it, but I just love the idea of putting words together and scoring points and finding, bingos and long words. And yeah, that was kind of like an aha moment.
Yeah. I guess in my case, I had sort of a similar background to César, where I actually grew up out of the country from ages 5 to 13. So when I was 5 years old, I moved to Italy. When I was 8, I moved to France. And I think doing that maybe kind of helped me develop language learning just skills. And it's still something I'm really passionate about. But I think I was fortunate to have that experience. And I think it translated when I discovered Scrabble as a 16 or 17-year-old. I think that was it was almost like learning a foreign language, because frankly, when you look at the words and the definitions, there's some arcane stuff in there. It's just a convolution of hundreds of years of language evolution, obscure Scottishisms, Hinglish, Singlish, which is Singapore English. There's all sorts of wild stuff. And we actually, one of the obnoxious things about Scrabble is there are two perfectly reasonable lexicons. One is the US one, and the other is the international, which has 30,000 more words. And I've gravitated to the latter, I think, just because it has all that jumble. It has Maori words. I find it kind of a treat. A lot of people think it's a pain in the ass, but so that's my journey.
Yeah, I tend to play mostly in the American one, but it's really like, I mean, I love the international one. I like playing in it, but I don't really get to travel that much nowadays. Or it's going to be a while until I can really travel again much. And the U.S. still gravitates, like I think like 80 or 90% of our tournaments are still in the U.S. lexicon. But once in a while, I'll try out like a tournament in the world lexicon, and I'm not as good at it. Obviously, I don't study it very much at all. Like I just know the 3-letter words and then a few bingos and a few high scoring plays besides this.
Yeah. So you've got AI deterministic models to try to figure out how to play. You've got a number of different games for just learning words. There's 2 separate dictionaries. There's right. I just look at Scrabble and go, "Oh, I'm really glad I'm not playing that." How do you build? What are your tips, like a new learner? Right. It's not like a radio podcast. If you had to make a quick radio hit about how to learn Scrabble quickly to a new, fresh person playing, what are your tips?
Learn the 2-letter words. The 2-letter words, there's only like about 100 of them, like give or take. It depends on the lexicon, but you already know most of them because they're just part of the English language. And then the weird ones, like, you know, ZA means pizza, QI means like the Chinese, like a chi, like life force. There's a few words like that are super useful. But if you just learn the 2-letter words, like you're gonna beat everybody you meet because nobody plays with, nobody knows all of them, and you can make parallel plays. Like you can create plays that parallel other plays and make a whole bunch of 2-letter words, and then you get like 50 extra points.
There's always a little hack. In this case, like the simple one, right? Like the one-off 2-letter words.
Of course, there's much more to it than that, but that's one way if you want to just beat your friends.
Yeah, I usually see the little colored tile where it's like double word, whatever, and I'm like, I don't know how to put that in. So you could just drop a tile and land yourself 50 points.
Yeah, exactly. It happens in our games as well. Sometimes we're playing and then somebody drops QI for 62 points. And you're like, oh, great. now I'm going to lose.
I saw Jesse's wheels turn in there. What tips do you got for us, Jesse?
I was thinking back to what it was like when César and I were playing online and how we got into it or how we improved. And sometimes I think when we make it to expertdom, we think of the hurdles for expertdom, which are learn the 2-letter words, 3-letter words, 4-letter words. But I think it's more about, there are actually a lot of ways to be good. There's a strong math component. There's a spatial reasoning component. I have friends who are experts, but their specialty will be they just find nice plays, just things that lock in to the fabric of the board creatively. So there are, I guess sometimes we have this ideal of perfection, but I think really if you want to, what you want to do is just play. Come on, Woogles, play games, play people from all over the world, and just start to. We have a free analyzer. I think it's the only one on the web that I'm aware of where you can just Lichess style. You can just kick it up after a game and look at the moves you could have done instead. Anyone can access it. It's not gated by any kind of paywall. It's never going to be gated by a paywall. But anyone can just use that and learn. And I would just do that. Play some fun games. Pick one that you're interested in. Crack open the analyzer. And just take 1 or 2 ideas of, oh, yeah, I could have done that. Sometimes it'll be a crazy word, but a lot of times it's just a small play.
We also have a puzzle mode. So the puzzle mode is nice because you're just given a position and then you try to find the best play from your rack that would play in that board. And one of the cool things is that we specifically geared it so that more than 50% of the solutions are common, like everyday, like English words. Like we have some contributors on Discord that actually created a common word language lexicon, right? Like a common English word lexicon. And this one guy specifically, like, would, like, 2 or 3 years ago, he would like stream himself going through the dictionary and a giant Excel spreadsheet and labeling words as common. He did this for like months, and finally he whittled it down to about 40 or 50,000 words that are words that, like, most of them are words that you or I would recognize as common English words. There's still a couple that are kind of iffy, and there's still a couple that he left out that he probably should have put in there. But it's a really cool way for people to learn. We can actually like newcomers could try that lexicon, and that kind of like one of the advantages of that is that it becomes a purely strategic game at that point, because everybody knows these words, and it's just about who can find them and who can make the best plays. And I think it's kind of like a nice thing for, like, for example, for chess players who want to try our game and they don't want to learn 100,000 words to be competitive. They take words that they know from everyday life. So our puzzles, like, many of them have these common word solutions, yet they're still very difficult, because one thing is knowing it's a word, and the other thing is finding the word on the board. The puzzles are of different ratings. Like, our players have actually tried them, and based on how many people solve them and how many people miss them, they get automatically rated. So then new players, they can, if they miss a few of those harder puzzles, their ratings will go down, and they'll try easy puzzles and kind of bounce around like that. So at any given time, we have like 10 or so people doing puzzles, but sometimes it goes up. Like when we release new puzzles, we have puzzles in English, French, German. I think those are the 3 languages we support for puzzles. Yeah. Not quite Norwegian yet. We don't have enough games.
How many words is in that common lexicon dictionary versus, say, the American dictionary?
I think the common lexicon has about 40 or 50,000. The American one has about 180,000.
Okay.
But
yeah.
The ones that we care about, like the ones that we really care about, are like 2 through 8 letter words. And those, I want to say, like, for the American one, it's closer to like 80 or 90,000. And for the common one, maybe it's like 30,000, 20 or 30,000. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, that's about the order of magnitude. The Collins Dictionary has about maybe 120 or 130,000 2 through 8 letter words. So it's quite a bit more. That's the international one that Jesse was talking about.
It's really interesting. I think it ties back to a lot of people don't realize on Wordle, like one of the things that really made that game work is they narrowed down the dictionary of the 5-letter words to like 3,000 common words that most people know. And that's super intriguing. Do you guys play Wordle, or is that too easy for you?
It's fun. I think we all got a little bit into it. There's still some people who still play it every day. Like, I see them on my Facebook wall. But yeah, I got into it for a bit. It's not even that easy. It's just we would love to like kind of riff on that idea. Like, I like these crazy like Wordle, where you have like four words at the same time or 8 at the same time. But I haven't really like gotten back into it like for a few months.
Yeah, we were thinking at one point about how do we achieve a similar level of virality, but with a word game or a simple word game, and what are the components that make Wordle so viral? And it's just, you can do it quickly. They keep basic counting stats so you can compare and share that out. And we incorporated some of that to our site. I wouldn't say shamelessly copied, but we try to make positions shareable. I think we could go a lot further with it. It's like if I were working on this full time, that would be one of the first things I try to crack, because a lot of people are familiar with the game, and I feel like you do a little mini puzzle and people would be interested.
Yeah, you can share puzzles from a site, and people can open up the puzzles and immediately shows them the screen. You could even share a GIF of an animated GIF of your game. So put them on Twitter or something. And then, so we did that for a few like famous games, like the finals of 2020 something, or we've hosted a few world tournaments. So we can put up GIFs, like either animated or static GIFs, saying like, what would you play here? Right, exportable right from our site.
I'm just seeing like YouTube bars with large play heads, because you're anticipating the next move, right? Like you're just gaming total playback time on the. It's just,
I'm curious. Do you have other favorite word games? Besides Scrabble or playing on Woogles.
I probably got into like Boggle, like the Boggle and Boggle like games, like for a bit. I'm not very good at them, but every once in a while I try to get good at it. It's kind of need to use a different part of your brain. I feel like I know a lot of words, but there's people who are like 10 times better than me at Boggle, no matter how much I work on it.
It's funny that you asked that because it's making me realize that I feel like I've been on this single-minded quest to be as good as Scrabble as possible, and sometimes the other games can feel like distractions, or you can feel guilt. It's like, oh, I should be studying, but you have to mix in some more fun in there. So, one thing I like that we offer on our site is we have clabbers, which is you can play any shuffling of the letters of a real word. You could play any anagram, we'd call it. And the boards look insane. They turn into these 8x8 just cubes where everything you could just add a letter if it can make an anagram. It looks wild. You score like 1,000 versus 900. We have a bot that does it that'll just crush you and make you feel inadequate. So that would probably be my guilty pleasure, is going and playing the bot and just getting smacked around a bit, reduced back to marveling at computers, basically.
fantastic. So you marveling at computers. Is that similar to what's the game Aerolith, where you've like the letters are all mixed up and you have to type it out? But what you're saying is you can mix up the letters and drop them on the board and call them
on the board.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Call the real word. Got it. The permutations on that are insane.
Yeah, like imagine you have the word cat. Well, you can play tack, right? And then that's a word because it can anagram into cat. And then you can imagine how a board would get when every word could just be any permutation of it. So the fact that we have a bot and an analyzer for that is insane. Like nobody has built one like that. We have a genius Singaporean programmer who's on our team who comes up with crazy algorithms. He's a guy who came up with that bot that can play clabbers like perfectly, pretty much.
Yeah, one of the interesting tensions about running Woogles is that César and I are very deep down the well, and there's a crowd of probably a few thousand experts around the world who are similarly deep. And what they push us to build is just newer and crazier features. We have a challenge mode where you immediately lose if you play a fake word. But on the flip side, our mission as a nonprofit is to expand the game and educate. And if we devote too much time to these crazy features, that actually is not going to do much for 95 to 98% of our user base, who are literally just kids learning how to play the game. So we have to be pretty selective with how we balance kind of newcomer friendly features and appealing to our core demographic.
Yeah, this notion of limited dictionary seems really cool, right? Like you're like, here, learn these 200 words. All right, now go, right? Okay, now let's do 400. And it would be the similar, like all words reversed, but just smaller. Anyway, that would help my tear-filled fourth grade mind.
Make it more accessible and make it way harder. Ready? Go.
Go. Yeah, you're working on both sides of the plot graph.
Well, that's cool. Well, so gaming in general, César, I think we saw a little bit in your background. Maybe you were programming a Casio when you were younger, building some games that way. I'm just curious, gaming at large, how'd you both get introduced, and what was your experience there?
I used to live in Venezuela, and when I was like, we were the children of like basically my dad was a U.S. immigrant, so he would like have to live there most of the time, and then he would come back to Venezuela, and it was hard on us, right? Like it's like the family being split up a lot. Like I spent a couple of years of my babyhood with my aunts who lived in Venezuela because my brother was there, so we all needed to like kind of take care of him. And anyway, like we had like a crazy situation like that. But I remember one of my happiest memories is when I was 6 and my dad came back in Venezuela. He brought me a Nintendo Entertainment System, and I was like, "What is this?" And I got completely hooked, obviously, like Mario and Duck Hunt and Mario 3 and those type of games, right? So that's how I got into gaming. And part of me was like, how do people make this? Like, how can this happen? I couldn't believe that people could make a game. So I always had a brain that thought that way. So I remember my brother had a Casio calculator. He was about 10 years older than me. So he was already like in high school at the time, or maybe starting college. And I started just playing with it and trying to see what it could do. I could draw little graphics, but it was all like just making graphs, for example. It wasn't anything special. But then I realized I had a programming mode. So then I would just try different things in the programming mode if you get it to print things out. But I remember figuring out like an if statement, like if this, then that. Like I just figured it out. I just stumbled into it. There was like an arrow, so I tried it out and I realized, oh my god, this is an if statement. And once you have an if statement, you can pretty much build anything. So then I started building little like number guessing games and games that like I remember I had like a little dragon that would like catch eggs that fell from the top and you just move it around. So I would do that. Like once I moved to the US, I had like a more powerful calculator. So I would do that all day, like my TI-82, TI-83, and work and make these little games for my friends. Like I remember I made a little tic-tac-toe game, and I didn't know much about how to program that kind of stuff. Right? Like now I know how to program a perfect tic-tac-toe game. But back then I probably just gave it a bunch of conditions, but still nobody could beat it. And then this girl that sat behind me in science class, she would always like ask for my calculator so she could play it instead of paying attention to class. And then one day she shows me she beat it. I was like, "What? How did you beat it?" And she showed me that she had beaten the tic-tac-toe bot. Then I had to go and debug it and figure out how she did that. So that's the kind of stuff I would do. And this is even before I owned the computer. We didn't get a computer until I was about maybe 14 or something. And then I was able to actually learn how to program on a computer, like with QBasic and C, C++. So I was always like in that world. Like I would learn from books, and then I started taking more CS classes, and the internet started getting better at teaching you that kind of stuff. But I was never like formally trained in CS. Like when I went to college, I still studied electrical engineering, mostly because I wanted to not be on a computer all day. But now that's my life. I'm a programmer by day and by night now. But I got away from it for a little bit. Electrical engineering is cool too.
I was going to say one thing, which is that I think it's fascinating how dependent your gaming trajectory is on exactly how old you are within a couple of years. You can pinpoint how old I am because I had a Game Boy in my hands at 3 with Dr. Mario and Super Mario. And I had one of those big doorstop cube Macs that I would play educational games on, like Spelunks or that was the one I really, or Math Blaster. And this stuff will mean absolutely nothing to anyone who's not exactly in my age range. And to anyone who is, I'll be like, oh, Math Blaster, yes. But I was also in that pocket of people who didn't have universal internet all the time, like universal fast internet. Like I remember modems dialing up. I've always thought if I were born 5 years later and like I went to college when there was stuff like League of Legends, I would not have graduated, or at least there would have been some kind of a reckoning. But this is kind of the word gaming was kind of the best that it was online. It was against many people simultaneously. So I think that competitive aspect was like I was playing online Boggle on the site called Tangleword when I was 11. I would get my mom to help me. Like we'd be cheating. Like I'd be on the keyboard. My mom would be doing the mouse, and we'd still like lose, but it still felt kind of like, yeah. So Yeah, but it's funny that our trajectory could have been so different if we'd been born 5 years later. We would just had like these giant multiplayer online games, and maybe our attention would have gone a completely different direction. But there's still interest in Scrabble. That's the crazy thing. It's like even with all the shiny stuff out there, people still want to play.
Yeah, for sure. That's all those games. Like I know you had asked about games, and I was mostly talking about coding, but in general, all those games started coming out. Yeah, when I was already graduated from high school and maybe even college. But I remember in high school I would play StarCraft a lot. That game was awesome, and the original StarCraft. And it had a modem, and then every once in a while, like it would freeze. So all my friends would wait 30 seconds for me to come back. And sometimes my mom would pick up the phone. I'd be like, "Oh no, no more StarCraft."
I think there's something interesting here just about the timelessness of some games like Scrabble and others that you think there's a timelessness, but is there? And what I mean by that is like I played so much Mario Kart 64, like I got pretty good at it. But these days, like my son wants to play Mario Kart on the Switch. And I kind of refuse to because I know he's going to beat me. But I'm like, can we break out the Mario Kart 64? Because I got it.
Because I got it. My son wants to play. He wants to play Madden, and I'm like, oh, now I have to learn football and dexterity. No, I don't. I don't have your controller. Like the original Nintendo had many fewer buttons than your controller.
Oh yeah, those crazy Xbox controllers. Yeah.
I think I played a Madden online league in like 2000 or 2001. Like they randomly had the ability to play online, and then they deprecated it for years because it was buggy as hell. But it's fascinating that all these games evolve towards this online competition aspect. And then, of course, there's cheating immediately. That's anytime you have any kind of online competition, you have cheating, which we have to think about a bunch ourselves. But it's like fascinating how it's an emergent property of any good game. It's like, okay, now I got to duke it out against someone else.
I love it. So earlier we talked about César. You've got bit of a startup background, and some decisions were made for great reasons on why to create Woogles as a 501c3. How would you compare kind of the difference between starting and running and launching a nonprofit versus doing the same in the startup world? What do you like more? What's not as good? Yeah, just what's the difference?
I actually think there's a lot of similarities between the two. Like I've done a startup before. I'm doing one right now. Back in 2011, I did a startup with Y Combinator. We actually were able to get it off the ground, almost ran out of money, and then bounced off, and we were actually able to have a nice exit in 2014. Decent one. We got acquired by a big company in San Francisco, and since then, I've been itching to do another startup. It was a fun thing. It was very stressful, obviously. Like there's a ton of work, a ton of like uncertainty, and then in 2017 or so, end of 2017, I took a job. Jesse referred me to his company that he worked at the time, and they ended up interviewing me. I took a job there, so I moved back east. And that was another startup, even though it was later along. But then once the pandemic hit, we saw this as an opportunity to do another startup, like apply the same lessons that you would do to a startup to creating Woogles. Like we did a Kickstarter, like raised money with mock-ups that were not like what the existing site has. It's a little bit like a lot of like companies do that, where they like create a mock-up and then they see is there actually interest in this idea. And actually, we're considering doing the same thing for my current startup. I was telling my co-founder, who is the same co-founder who I worked with 10 years ago. I was telling him, hey, why don't you just make a mock-up for all of these and we put them on our site, and then as people show interest, we'll make those pages. So we did kind of something similar for Woogles, where we created these beautiful mock-ups, and then during the few months after the Kickstarter finished, it took us like 3 or 4 months to launch. We made those mock-ups come to life. There was a ton of work. Like I remember we needed to get out of tournament mode before this big New Orleans tournament. There's the New Orleans tournament that happens every year, and they wanted to host it on our site during the pandemic. So there was like sleepless nights, like literally like I slept like half an hour like the night before because we were still having issues with the tournament mode. And then at the end, everything worked great. There was a little bit of a panic moment where the tournament mode broke in the middle of starting the next round, and one of our team members, Lola, like she figured out the solution. Like she knew exactly what was happening, and I was able to get into the server, like, make a couple edits, and reboot it, and then the tournament went great after that. And that was awesome. I think there was a lot of panic and stress there, like behind the scenes, but then people were streaming the tournament. They didn't like let that come through. They said, okay, everything's going great. There's a little bit of some technical delays, a little hiccup here and there, and then everybody was they were raving about the tournament to give us donations. So I thought that was really nice. But there was a lot of those panic moments. There was a lot of like there was a little bit of tension too between like doing things kind of the startup way, which is you release features and then you iterate upon them, versus releasing something that's super polished but might not get used as much. So there was a little bit of back and forth there where me and the other team members, we would discuss like what our next feature should look like. But the fact that, it was a 501c3, like we're not here to make a profit, and there's no real like deadlines. Like, we set our own pace. That also makes it feel a little more relaxed as well. Like we decided to not give ourselves deadlines anymore, kind of like we did for the tournament, because that was really stressful for the tournament mode. So after that, like we've taken it a little bit easier, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting about working on a nonprofit. Woogles is basically a nonprofit foundation, or in that mold. And the thing that's super interesting about that versus a profit motive is that when you have a profit motive, you can basically make any decision as a CEO especially as a startup. You have to do pretty radical and often brutal things to just stay alive, because that is the paramount concern. And we're trying to stay alive. And we have operating costs, right? So it's kind of similar with Woogles, but the people who are contributing are volunteering. Everyone has who has worked on this was volunteering their time. And the result is, I feel like when you're in charge of something like that, you spend more time on ego management. Everyone who's there has a different reason for being there. They all have different goals, whether it's personal skill development, whether it's something really altruistic, whether it's something very actually self-minded, like I'm going to create a portfolio and this is going to be part of my portfolio. So you actually spend a lot more time kind of getting everyone to lock in, because everyone's goals are slightly different. And you can't really expect them to all be super aligned. Everyone is investing time in this nonprofit above and beyond their day jobs, and they're all trying to get something distinct out of it. So you're just trying to find that nexus that binds people. And when you're doing at-will employment at a startup, it's a little different. It's like, I am setting the goal, and you will follow my goal, and I will pay you a salary. We do not have that option by comparison.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. And we have to do a little bit of managing, people's egos, I would say. It's not as bad as it sounds, right? But it's actually really important, like on the business development side, as well as like even on the coding side. Like people have different coding styles, different ideas for what the licenses should be. You have to kind of keep that all aligned, and either try to set a vision or try to let them get their pieces of their vision through, so that they can continue to be motivated to work on it. So. Yeah, it's a little bit of a juggling game there.
Well said. Well, kudos to you guys for spinning this up. I mean, for a nonprofit, the site looks amazing. You've built some amazing things. It does look like if you go to woogles.io and you look for the support Wugles link, there's a link to do a one-time donation there, or a monthly donation. Here at Hey Good Game, I know we'll put in a contribution and just really appreciate what you guys are doing to advance not just the Scrabble community, but learning at large. And I think that's pretty awesome. Jesse and César, if people want to reach out to you, is there a good place for people to find you online, or do you want people to reach out?
Yeah, Woogles, yeah, you can say Woogles at Woogles.io, or you could try our first names at Woogles.io. But maybe the Woogles at Woogles.io might be better. You just want to ask the company or us anything.
Right on. Well, César, Jesse, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate you taking time with us.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for having us.